3,000 years ago, survival meant mathematics and metal. With more men, thicker armor, and sharper bronze, you survived. If you didn't, you were erased. For a massive population of Israelites camped at the edge of this barren stretch of desert, the old rules of war presented a fatal problem. Ahead of them lay Canaan, a territory they knew almost nothing about. Marching hundreds of thousands of civilians, livestock, and supplies across a border into a region guarded by established walled cities would guarantee slaughter. They lacked the military infrastructure to overwhelm an entrenched enemy. Before a single foot could cross that border, they needed an entirely different kind of leverage. They needed sight. Moses handpicked 12 men from the encampment. They were given a completely covert directive, unlike any standard military maneuver of the era. Their instructions were explicit. They were to slip inside the territory, map the terrain, profile the inhabitants, and never draw their weapons. Under no circumstances were they to engage the locals. Looking at this regional map of Canaan, you see the sheer geographic scale they infiltrated, from southern deserts to northern mountains. They needed specific data, assessing if walls were basic perimeters or heavy fortifications, gauging population density, and evaluating soil and water supply. This directive established a framework. It was a formal, state-sponsored operation designed to gather actionable intelligence before committing troops to a battlefield. Crossing into Canaan required these 12 operatives to abandon the safety of the camp and move entirely undetected through hostile terrain. In an era where vast armies announced their presence with war horns and marching columns, isolation was a massive vulnerability. If local guards spotted a small, unescorted group mapping out their defenses, the operatives would be executed immediately. They spent 40 days navigating the interior. To survive, they developed early forms of tradecraft, memorizing patrol routes, traveling quietly, and observing agricultural practices without drawing the suspicion of the locals working the land. By moving quietly through valleys and slipping past guarded checkpoints, they circumvented armies that would have easily crushed a frontal assault. The operatives systematically categorized the region into 3 threat and opportunity profiles. They measured warrior size, wall integrity, and agricultural yield. The land held immense value, with rich soil and water capable of sustaining a large population. To verify this economic data, they acquired physical evidence. They cut down a single branch bearing a cluster of grapes so massive it required 2 men to carry it out on a wooden pole. With their mental maps finalized and their physical evidence secured, the 12 men initiated the extraction phase, slipping back across the border and retracing their steps into the desert. Every operative survived the 40-day mission. They evaded capture, mapped the territory, and successfully returned to the encampment with the data. By successfully extracting a detailed profile of a hostile nation's internal infrastructure, the group established a framework for intelligence gathering. They had shown that data could be retrieved from behind enemy lines without the presence of a standing army. The 12 operatives stood before Moses and the entire camp to deliver their debrief. But gathering data is only the first phase of an intelligence cycle. Information holds no value until it is interpreted, and interpretation is always subject to human psychology. 10 of the operatives presented the facts, the walled cities and the large warriors, but they filtered those facts through their own fear, warping objective measurements into a narrative of certain doom. Joshua and Caleb looked at the exact same data. Instead of panic, they saw a wealthy territory that could be systematically conquered. The mechanics of the infiltration were flawless. The failure occurred entirely in the analysis room, where cognitive bias overpowered objective reporting. The terrifying narrative of the 10 operatives rapidly infected the camp. Panic caused total paralysis, and historical accounts record that the Israelites delayed their advance, wandering in the desert for an additional 40 years. Today, vast bureaucracies are dedicated to the management of state secrets. Yet the core directive at the center of these agencies is identical to the one issued 3 millennia ago in the desert. Whether an operative is manually pacing out the distance between stone watchtowers or an analyst is processing real-time satellite imagery, the methods are simply tools to achieve a single goal. It is a continuous, invisible effort to map the capabilities of foreign actors and predict their next move on a global scale. Survival relies on knowing what lies over the horizon. History ultimately favors those who map the territory, eliminate their biases, and secure the truth